History is full of puzzles, fragments of truth scattered across chronicles, sagas, and legends. One of the most fascinating of these puzzles comes from the Viking Age, where the line between myth and reality is often blurred. Today, we're diving into a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries: the strange connection between Ivar the Boneless, the ruthless son of Ragnar Lothbrok, and Ímar, a powerful Viking king remembered in Irish chronicles. Both men were feared, both commanded vast fleets, and both left their mark on history. But here's the twist. As soon as Ímar mysteriously vanished from Irish records, Ivar the Boneless suddenly appeared in England, leading the great Heathen army. Coincidence? Or are we looking at the same man remembered under two different names? If that's true, then we may need to rewrite the history of the Viking Age. The answer could reshape everything we thought we knew about Ragnar's legendary sons and the Norse influence across Britain and Ireland. So, who exactly was Ímar? Could he and Ivar the Boneless truly be the same person? And what secrets are hidden in the annals of history? Let's uncover this remarkable Viking puzzle together. Who was Ivar the Boneless? To understand the puzzle, we first need to look closely at one of the most feared Viking leaders of all time, Ivar the Boneless. Ivar's origins are legendary. According to the sagas, he was the son of Ragnar Lothbrok, the famous Viking hero, and Aslog, a woman said to have been descended from both the Norse god Odin and the legendary dragon slayer Sigurd. From the very beginning, Ivar's life was marked by both greatness and tragedy. He was born with a mysterious condition. The sagas describe him as unable to walk, his legs weak, or even completely useless. This disability earned him the name the Boneless. Modern scholars have debated what this condition might have been, from brittle bone disease to hemophilia to a severe joint disorder. But whatever the truth, one thing is certain: Ivar refused to let his body limit his destiny. Instead of strength, Ivar relied on his mind. He became one of the most brilliant strategists of the Viking Age. He understood how to outmaneuver his enemies using deception, psychological warfare, and cunning battle tactics that left his foes in terror. In 865 AD, Ivar led what became known as the Great Heathen Army, the largest Viking invasion of England. His mission was fueled by vengeance, to punish King Ella of Northumbria, who had executed his father Ragnar by throwing him into a pit of snakes. Under Ivar's command, the Viking army swept across Anglo-Saxon England, capturing cities, defeating kings, and spreading fear wherever they went. His most infamous act came when he captured Ella. According to legend, Ivar subjected him to the gruesome execution ritual known as the Blood Eagle, where the victim's ribs were broken and lungs pulled out in a horrific public display. Despite his disability, Ivar's name became synonymous with terror. Anglo-Saxon chronicles and Norse sagas alike remembered him as a ruthless, unstoppable leader. Yet as suddenly as he appeared, his story became clouded in mystery. Different sources give different accounts of his death. Some say he died in Dublin, others in England, and still others suggest he simply vanished. And this is where the puzzle begins. Because at the very same time Ivar the Boneless disappears from English records, another Viking leader, known as Ímar, is making his mark in Ireland. Who was Ímar? While Ivar the Boneless was carving his legacy in England, another Viking leader was rising to power across the Irish Sea, a man named Ímar. Ímar appears in the Irish annals, the medieval chronicles that recorded the events of Ireland year by year. These records describe him as a Norse king of immense power, someone who helped shape the very foundation of Viking Ireland. He is remembered as one of the founders of the Ímar dynasty, a powerful family of Norse Gaelic rulers that controlled Dublin, parts of Scotland, and even extended influence into the Isle of Man. This dynasty would dominate the Irish Sea region for generations, making Ímar's legacy one of the most significant in Viking history. The chronicles describe Ímar leading brutal raids, forging alliances, and ruling Dublin as a base of power. He clashed with both Irish kings and rival Viking factions, cementing his position as one of the great Viking warlords of the 9th century. But what makes Ímar so fascinating is not just his power, It's the mystery that surrounds him. Around the year 870, Ímar suddenly disappears from the Irish records without explanation. The annals note his death in 873, calling him the King of the Norsemen of all Ireland and Britain. That's an extraordinary title, suggesting his influence reached far beyond Dublin, across the seas, into Britain itself. And here's where the puzzle takes shape. Because while Ímar's story in Ireland comes to a close, in England we find the sudden rise and mysterious death of Ivar the Boneless. Their timelines overlap so perfectly that some scholars believe they were not two different men, but one legendary Viking remembered under two names. Could Ímar, king of Dublin, and Ivar the Boneless, son of Ragnar, truly have been the same person? Striking similarities between Ivar and Ímar. When we place the stories of Ivar the Boneless and Ímar side by side, the similarities are almost impossible to ignore. First, there's the timeline. Ímar disappears from the Irish annals around the late 860s, exactly when Ivar the Boneless emerges in England as the leader of the great Heathen army. Later, when Ivar vanishes from English sources, the Irish annals record the death of Ímar in 873. It's as if one figure fades out and the other fades in. Second, there's the title. The Irish annals call Ímar King of the Norsemen of all Ireland and Britain. That's not a local chieftain. That's the kind of sweeping power that fits perfectly with Ivar, the mastermind of a massive invasion of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Both men were described as rulers whose authority stretched across seas, uniting warriors from many lands under one banner. Third, their military style. Both Ivar and Ímar were remembered as cunning strategists rather than brute warriors. Unlike many Vikings, who relied solely on strength, both leaders are portrayed as using strategy, politics, and terror to maintain power. For Ivar, it was psychological warfare and ruthless tactics in England. For Ímar, it was alliances, dynasties, and domination of trade routes through Dublin. Finally, there's the mystery of their deaths. Some English sources claim Ivar died in England. Others are vague. Meanwhile, the Irish annals clearly record Ímar's death in Dublin in 873. But what if they're describing the same event, just through two different cultural lenses? To the English, he was Ivar the Boneless. To the Irish, he was Ímar, king of the Norsemen. Put all this together, and the picture becomes clear. These were not two separate men living parallel lives, but possibly one extraordinary Viking whose reputation was so vast. Different cultures remembered him in different ways. Historical sources and their contradictions. To untangle the mystery of Ivar the Boneless and Ímar, we have to turn to the sources, the chronicles, sagas, and histories that have survived the centuries. But here's the challenge. These sources don't always agree. In England, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle and other medieval writings describe Ivar as a fearsome leader of the great Heathen army. They record his campaigns against Northumbria, Mercia, and East Anglia, and they remember his role in the death of King Ella. But when it comes to his final days, the English sources grow vague. Some suggest he died in England, others don't mention his end at all. In Ireland, we have the Annals of Ulster and the Annals of the Four Masters. These chronicles mention Ímar repeatedly, recording his victories and his influence as King of Dublin. Then, in 873, they mark his death, describing him as the King of the Norsemen of all Ireland and Britain. That's a massive claim, not just a local king, but a ruler whose power spanned across the sea. Meanwhile, in Norse sagas, Ivar the Boneless is remembered as the son of Ragnar Lothbrok, a figure who blends myth and history. The sagas focus on his role as a strategist, his cunning, and his brutal vengeance. But sagas were written centuries after the events, making them less reliable as strict history, though rich in cultural memory. And then there's the chronological puzzle. The English place Ivar's death in the 870s. The Irish say Ímar died in 873. Two names, two records, but the same time frame. So what do we make of this? Were medieval chroniclers describing two different men with overlapping careers? Or were they writing about one man, remembered differently depending on whether you were in England, Ireland, or Scandinavia? The contradictions leave us with more questions than answers and open the door for some fascinating theories. Theories about Ivar and Ímar. Historians have long debated the true relationship between Ivar the Boneless and Ímar. Were they two distinct men, or were they in fact the same Viking remembered under different names? The first theory argues that Ivar and Ímar were indeed the same person. Supporters of this view point out the timing. Ivar disappears from English records around the same time Ímar rises in Ireland. The overlap is too precise to ignore. Add to this the fact that both are described as rulers of vast territories, feared by their enemies, and highly influential among the Norse. If they were one man, then Ivar's career stretched across both England and Ireland, making him an even greater figure than we thought. The second theory suggests they were separate but related. Perhaps Ivar and Ímar were brothers or cousins, both members of the legendary dynasty of Ragnar Lothbrok. In this scenario, their near-simultaneous prominence was no coincidence. Instead, it was part of a larger Viking family strategy, spreading their power across the Irish Sea and into Anglo-Saxon England. The third theory is more skeptical. It argues that medieval chroniclers simply confused different figures. The repetition of names, the oral transmission of stories, and the tendency to exaggerate made it easy for identities to blur. According to this view, Ivar and Ímar may have had similar careers, but they were entirely separate men. And yet, there's one detail that keeps the mystery alive. Ímar's title at his death, King of the Norsemen of all Ireland and Britain. That sounds remarkably like the role Ivar played in England. Could it really be a coincidence? The truth remains uncertain, but these theories highlight just how remarkable the puzzle of Ivar and Ímar truly is. The legacy of the puzzle. The debate over Ivar the Boneless and Ímar is more than just a curiosity of Viking history. It challenges us to think about how history itself is written. Were these two men truly one and the same? A single Viking leader who carved his name across both England and Ireland? Or have we been piecing together fragments of two different lives, blurred by time and legend? Regardless of which theory you believe, one thing is certain. Both Ivar and Ímar left an extraordinary mark. Their campaigns changed the balance of power in the British Isles, shaping kingdoms, rewriting alliances, and spreading Viking influence far beyond Scandinavia. The possibility that they were the same man makes the story even more fascinating. If true, it would mean Ivar, or Ímar, was one of the most successful Viking leaders in history, commanding realms that stretched across seas and cultures. But even if they were different people, the mystery itself is a legacy. It shows us how myths and facts intertwine, how memory and storytelling can shape the past. In the end, the enigma of Ivar and Ímar keeps the Viking Age alive in our imagination, reminding us that history is not always clear-cut, and sometimes the unanswered questions are what make it most compelling.